Right now, governments around the world owe about $111 trillion. That's the largest financial obligation in human history. That is roughly 95% of everything the entire human race produces in a year. The United States alone owes $38 trillion. China owes over $18 trillion. Japan's debt is more than double its entire economy, and every single one of these countries is still borrowing more, which raises a question that sounds simple. If every country is in debt at the same time, who are they borrowing from? Who is on the other side of $111 trillion? Is there someone out there that the entire planet is working for? Or is this entire system something stranger and more interesting than that? What debt actually is and isn't? Let's start with what national debt actually is, because most people picture it like a personal credit card bill. That's not quite right. A government goes into debt for a simple reason. It spends more than it takes in. Taxes come in. But wars, healthcare, infrastructure, and emergencies cost more. So instead of immediately raising taxes, which politically speaking nobody loves, governments borrow. And they borrow by doing something called issuing bonds. A bond is basically a government saying, give us money now. We'll pay you back later with interest. And anyone can buy one. Banks, pension funds, insurance companies, other governments. So when you hear $38 trillion in national debt, it's millions and millions of small promises spread across the entire economy. But here's where it gets strange. Some of the people lending money to governments are the same people paying taxes to them. Now here's where the government debt equals personal debt comparison breaks down. You can't print money. You can't raise nationwide taxes. You can't issue "I owe us" that the entire world accepts as safe. Governments can. When an old bond expires, they issue a new one. The cycle continues. Britain has done this continuously since 1694, a permanent feature of the system. But the system only works as long as people trust you. The moment they don't, everything changes. How debt took over the world. In 1835, the United States did something no major country has done since. It paid off its entire national debt. President Andrew Jackson was furious at the debt. He saw it as a menace to democracy, so he wiped it out completely. And then within 2 years, the economy collapsed. Without government bonds to invest in safely, money had nowhere to go. And in 1837, one of the worst financial crises in American history hit. Debt came roaring back almost immediately. Eliminating debt didn't stabilize the economy. It helped break it. Because debt, it turns out, is also the thing a lot of the financial system leans on. Fast forward to today. The 2008 financial crisis. Governments borrowed massively to prevent total economic collapse. The COVID pandemic, trillions more practically overnight to keep people and businesses alive. And now, surging military budgets driven by global instability, funded by more debt. Only 2 countries in the entire world have zero government debt right now, Liechtenstein and a small Pacific island called Niue. That's it. Every other nation on Earth is borrowing, including the ones that could technically afford not to, which raises the obvious question, why? Because sometimes borrowing is genuinely smarter than not borrowing. It spreads costs over time, it avoids sudden, massive tax hikes, and it keeps money moving through the economy. Debt isn't an emergency measure anymore. It's built into how the entire system works, when debt is fine and when it isn't. The answer isn't about the size of the debt. It's about who you owe it to. Japan has the highest debt to GDP ratio of any major economy on Earth. And it has never defaulted, never come close to a crisis. Why? Because almost all of that debt is owed to Japanese people and Japanese institutions. It's an IOU circulating inside Japan. Now look at Greece in 2010. Greece's debt was actually lower than Japan's, and it collapsed completely, required a massive international bailout. People are losing jobs, services gutted, protests in the streets. Greece owed most of its debt to outside lenders in euros, a currency it doesn't control. So when investors got nervous, Greece couldn't print its way out. It couldn't buy time, it just ran out of options. Because the size of the debt matters less than who you owe and in what currency. That is the insight that changes how you read every debt headline from here on. Countries aren't just borrowing from banks and citizens, they're borrowing from each other. Italy owes money to Spain. Spain owes money to France. France holds German bonds. Germany holds Italian bonds. And in between, Banks and pension funds are trading these bonds constantly, which is why people asking why don't countries just cancel each other's debt are missing something crucial. Because millions of ordinary people's retirement savings are sitting inside that web. You cancel the debt, you wipe out the savings. So who do we actually owe? We owe it to ourselves. The system isn't run by someone else. There is no secret world creditor. Take the United States, and a massive chunk of that $38 trillion is held by American institutions, the Social Security Trust Fund, retirement accounts, domestic banks. The government owes money to its own citizens. Now, foreign debt does exist, and it's a completely different story. Developing countries often have to borrow in dollars or euros, currencies they don't control. They owe that money to the IMF, the World Bank, and if their own currency loses value, their debt can double overnight. The same amount of debt suddenly becomes twice as hard to repay. But here's the reframe that pulls it all together. Every single dollar of government debt is someone else's investment. Debt isn't just a burden on one side of the ledger, it's wealth on the other side. Debt isn't the apocalypse, but it's not nothing. So is global debt a ticking time bomb, or is it just how modern economies work? The honest answer is both, depending on how it's managed. Debt is a tool. Government bonds are the bedrock of safe investment worldwide. Pull them out, and the whole structure shakes. Right now, 23 countries owe more than their entire annual economic output, and some of them are spending more on interest payments just servicing the debt. And when a country loses control of its debt, retirement savings disappear, jobs vanish. The fine line is this: debt is sustainable when the economy grows and lenders stay confident. The moment either of those cracks, things move fast. The answer in one idea: the normal engine of funding everything from wars to welfare, crises to infrastructure. And who do they owe? Mostly themselves and each other, in one enormous, constantly moving, globally interconnected web of promises. There's no secret creditor, just trust and the collective belief that tomorrow will be productive enough to pay for today. So the next time you see a headline about trillions in national debt, don't panic. Ask the better questions. Who holds that debt? Is it domestic or foreign? Is the economy growing? Are lenders still confident? Because those are the questions that actually tell you whether debt is fine or whether it's about to become a problem. Debt is not money, it's trust. The global economy runs on belief. The belief that tomorrow will be worth more than today. As long as that belief holds, the system keeps moving. And the moment it breaks, everything changes. If this changed how you see the economy, subscribe. The world isn't drowning in debt. It's floating on promises. Because there's a lot more of this kind of thing coming. And in a world this financially complicated, understanding how it works, that's worth something.